Shut up and sit down.
Hey there, ladies and gents. So, Endwalkers. Got a lot of interesting info out of that. Of course, the two biggest things being the two new classes. Of course, everyone's hyped about the Sage, and everyone's arguing about the new melee DPS. So, I figured I'd throw my, hat into the ring and tell you what I think. As far as what the class's name's going to be, or even what it's going to do, I have no freaking idea. But I think it's a pretty safe bet to say what weapon it's going to use. Now, the two primary weapons people are thinking is either going to be a Scythe or a hammer. And I'm also in the boat of thinking that Xenos is going to be our first look at this new melee class. So with that in mind, there's a couple reasons I'm on Team Scythe for this. One of the big reasons is Xenos himself. I don't see the man using a hammer. I'm sorry. Pretty much the only people we've seen use anything that looks like a hammer has been the dwarves. And if we go from the dwarves to Xenos using a hammer, I don't know. That's just too funny to me. Another big reason is because of the classes that are associated with the hammer weapon in most games, especially Final Fantasy. Actually, one of which people have been calling for Templar. And Templar doesn't make any sense to me why people think that's going to be a thing, especially with Xenos being the poster boy for this new class. And I have a little bit of stuff to back this up. One thing for Templar, for instance, is the fact of, in most Final Fantasy games, like primarily the tactics games it's been Templars are knights who work close with their church. Xenos doesn't care about religion. We've literally seen him possess gods. That being said, Templars also didn't really use, even here in the illustration you see, Templars didn't really use hammers. They use spears or heavy swords. Even then, they use light magic, which again just doesn't really fit Xenos, in my opinion. Another class that does use hammers that people have been saying was the cleric or the priest, which again, I just don't really see Xenos coming out as a priest or a cleric. A couple things I've highlighted here, like most clerics have powers to heal wounds, protect their allies, and sometimes resurrect the dead. Even some can manipulate, summon, or banish the undead. Whoop-de-doo. He has no reason to learn that because none of us in the Scions use undeads for any of our stuff. So, having him come through with this entire new class that's going to have little to do with fighting us, as obsessed as he is with the Warrior of Light, doesn't hold a lot of water. Now, you might still be saying, well, it could still be a hammer class, and you're absolutely right. I don't know. None of us know. I don't even think Yoshi P knows half the time. He just likes messing with us. But we have a couple things that point towards it being a Scythe class. One of which being Yoshi P himself, of course, with his famous t-shirt teases. Now, that doesn't mean anything necessarily, because we have had times where Yoshi P's worn a shirt and everyone's like, oh, the shirt has the color blue on it, so we're getting blue mage, and then Yoshi was like, haha, no, it's the opposite, it's red. Here comes red mage. Not necessarily what happened, but you get what I mean. But I think we've already seen Xenos with his Scythe. As a matter of fact, I'm almost 100% sure we've seen Xenos with his scythe. And to point that out, let me show you what I mean. I'm sure everyone, and I know I'm late to the party on all of this stuff, but I'm sure everyone's already seen the teaser trailer for Endwalkers. But here we have, our boy Xenos just sitting here watching the world burn, like every mad villain should. His signature board pose sitting in this throne, leaned off to the right, but if you looked about right here, we have what looks to be the handle of something and the head of something. Now, the argument could be made that this is a hammer. And you might be right, but would you be happy if that was a hammer? I mean, that's like some of the little rinky-dink great axes warrior can equip at times. You think they're really going to give Xenos such a puny little hammer to fight us with? I just don't think so. Now, I could be completely wrong, but, there's no telling. Of course, the way he's sitting as well leads me to believe it's a scythe because, even for those that played Final Fantasy XI, remember, we always put our scythes up with our right hand across our back. The staff would come across this way, the bottom being out here, the head of the scythe coming over here and hanging off my shoulder, almost exactly like how it's sitting here with Xenos. Now, that's no kind of proof, and I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about the hammer of darkness being brought down upon the shield of light? Because everyone loves to quote La Habrea, apparently. Fine. That's a very poetic thing. It's a very thematic phrase. But I believe that's just it. It's just meant to be poetic. Even at the time when La Habrea dropped that line, 7 years ago now, he didn't use any form of dark magic or dark hammer, or it was nothing literal to that. He basically activated Ultima to try and blow us away. And then, of course, from that, we got one of Gaius's famous lines now. Beside the point, we also just recently got done with the Eden raid series, so that also gave us quite literally a character that used a literal hammer of darkness, and in multiple instances was brought upon a shield of light. But if we're going to just keep the argument alive with words from La Habrea and this line that's been spewed over the last few years now, there's actually a line right here in this video that kind of leans back towards the Scythe side of things. So let's listen to it real quick from everyone's most hated boy, Finn Daniel. Here we go.
Past the far edge of fate, bring blades dark and light.
Bring blades of dark and light. Now, again, this could be just a completely throwaway line, like I think the Hammer of Darkness versus Shield of Light was. Or it could have a lot more meaning to it, like a lot of the teaser video stuff does. Now, that being said, we have the Warrior Light come into this expansion as Paladin, as the poster boy for this expansion. So we have our Blade of Light right there. Not to mention our usual gimmick of using some form of light weapon or something of that sort. Even as the Warrior of Darkness, we decided to throw an Axe of Light at, our boy Emmett to finish him off. That all being said, it would fit, in my mind at least, it would fit so beautifully to have a Scythe as the antagonist to the Blade of Light. At least in Western culture, when you think of death, think of the Grim Reaper. What is he always holding? A scythe. This is supposed to be the end of times. This is supposed to be the final days. How poetic would it be for our ultimate adversary, our, number one frenemy, to decide to fight us with a scythe? Something that basically conjures the image of death, of the end, in most people's minds when they see this item. Plus, it would just... I mean, I'm a fanboy for any game that has a scythe for a usable weapon in the first place. So my opinion here is a little bit of bias. Admittedly, it's a little bit biased. But there are so many things that lean towards this idea being right. And I don't claim to be any kind of authority by any means. And again, Yoshi P and the dev team might throw a complete curveball and do whatever they freaking want. There's no telling with them. They're crazy enough to bring Yokotaro in to do a raid series for him, so no telling what else they might have up their sleeve when it comes to any new classes. I mean, we've already seen them take something as iconic as the Gunblades and make an entire class around them just from the abilities and skills of another character. It wasn't even a class in any other game. That's why I'm not really trying to make a class prediction here as much as what the weapon would be. So, the classes that people have picked don't really fit. The class I could see maybe working, though, would be, if I had to throw my 2 cents in here for this, since I'm sure someone's going to ask, if I had to pick a class for a scythe that Xenos would be using, something along the lines of Dreadnought. I wouldn't want to see it be a Necromancer, though I could see Xenos now with the Resonance being able to find a way to revive the dead to fight us. I mean, he's the type of person that would do that without a second thought. If he thought it would make us want to fight him quicker, he would revive someone we cared about, knock on wood, and make us kill them again. But, again, this is supposed to be a class we're getting as the player base, and Yoshi P and the dev team have already straight out said they don't want to give the Warrior Light Necromancer because even in 14 lore, it is a completely evil type of magic. It's akin to primal summoning. It rips aether from the land. It manipulates the dead. Yada, yada, yada. So I could see a Dreadnought being a much better choice. I mean, even fit someone like Xenos, who's basically a juggernaut for most of the time anyway. Just throw a bit of dark magic into the mix, let him hit harder, and let him leave like a DOT that does bleed damage or something. And yeah. With that being said, I'd love to see what anyone else has to say or thoughts on this idea. So leave a comment, and thanks for listening to this little bit of time of me ranting, I guess. Hope you liked it. Leave a like, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing. Till then, later.